Commissioner Yockel?
Here.
Okay. We do have enough commissioners to proceed. Can I have a motion concerning the approval of the minutes for the May 18, 2015 meeting?
Move we approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay. Okay. Item is approved with one abstain. Okay, we go on now to item 3, report on licensed taxi and wrecker service from the police department. It is the quarterly report for the April, May, and June. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. This is the quarterly report. Made a few changes on this report here, so going to make a couple more here after this one, but it was a busy last 3 months. So taxis, I had 55 new, 95 renewals, 4 duplicates on the permit, the driver's permits. Inspections was 104 passed, 106 failed. Limos, I had 1 that was in the no charger exempt. It worked for 2 companies, so that they get 1 under the same price. New limo drivers was 13, renews is 11. Carriages have, 29 vehicles passed and 1 failed. On carriages, I had 1 new one, 10 renewals, 20 vehicles passed, 2 failed. On pedicabs, I have 5 new ones, 1 renew on the driver's permits, 1 duplicate. 24 of those vehicles passed and 1 failed. And on shuttles, drivers 4 new, 6 renewed, 1 duplicate, and 4 vehicles passed and 6 failed. As for complaints, I had 4 complaints during that month, or the quarter, 3 investigations and 1 field inspection. Have any questions?
Okay. Do we have any questions on the report? All right. Thank you very much for the information. Thank you. Okay, let the record show that Commissioner Schuline is down here. Okay, we go on to the consent docket, items 4. There's 1 item on the consent docket. Do you have anybody here to speak against the item that's on the consent docket? Okay, do we have a motion concerning the consent docket?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hale to approve the consent.
Second.
And we have a second from Commissioner George. Any discussion on the consent docket? Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent docket from Commissioner Hale, second by Commissioner George. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We have a request that's pending to move items 5J and K forward as the briefers have additional meetings to go to. So I would be willing to entertain a motion to move item 5J to AA and item K to BB. Anybody want to make that motion?
Make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale to move items J and K to AA and BB.
Second.
Okay, do we have a second from Commissioner Schuline? Any discussion? Okay. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, the items have been moved. So let's go ahead and go with item AA first, which is Oklahoma City Police Department, Municipal Code 32.1, 32.8, and 33-63, to consider a request to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance amendment, Article 1 of Chapter 32, Motor Vehicle and Traffic of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010, amending Sections 3-1, definitions, and creating Sections 32-8, texting while driving, and amending Article 4 of Chapter 33, Municipal Court, amending Section 33-63, Schedule of Fines for Traffic, Animal, and Criminal Convictions. Who do we have here to speak on this?
That would be me.
Oh, there you are. Hi there. Can I have your name, please?
Cindy Richard. I'm with the City Attorney's Office.
Ma'am.
I am authorized to say that this is being presented by the Oklahoma City Police Department, and Chief City regrets that he cannot be here today, but he's asked me to present this. As you may be aware from the stories in the press, the legislature passed a no texting while driving statute recently. They put some very strong preemptive language into that piece of legislation, and so what we've drafted and what we have here before you basically mirrors the state law, and we are not at liberty to make any changes to that language. So what you see is what you get, and they've carved some exceptions out in emergency communications that the statute doesn't apply. And then you have to go in and kind of read the definitions and the language to see kind of what it applies to. Other than those emergency situations, it basically talks about electronic messaging. And so when you are not by wire and not orally, but when you are basically electronically messaging another person or another entity, then you can't do it while you're driving. You can't type it in, you can't send it, and you can't read it. So messaging is pretty broad-based in the way that the statutory language is written. I understand you might have some questions about that. I can tell you that until the Oklahoma Supreme Court or the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals has a case that finally goes up, we may not know all the exact boundaries to where it applies, but I know that I've discussed this with police's legal advisor, and we're pretty comfortable both from a legal advisory perspective as well as a prosecutorial perspective to go with a pretty broad approach on what electronic messaging is.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure. Any questions?
I'll just wait till we get a motion up. So do we have a motion concerning 5AA?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve 5AA from Commissioner George. We have a second? Second. We have a second from Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion, questions? The only one I have is like Facebook posting, Instagram. I mean, it gets into all these different Vine and all this video stuff. I mean, is that all encompassing, you think, in the definition?
We're going to interpret it that way for now. We don't really, we're not going to be confined by what those different brandings call their messages, whether it's tweets or posts or that sort of thing.
So like if it's a Facebook post, you're typing it in, you hit post, that's like a text message going out.
That will be our interpretation right now until there's some case law to guide us otherwise.
Okay. Good. Any other questions or comments about item 5AA? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield, to approve item 5AA. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we now go on to item 5BB. Oklahoma City Police Department, Municipal Code 32-191. Consider a recommendation to the Oklahoma City Council on an ordinance amendment, Article 5 of Chapter 32, Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010, amending Section 32-191, changing lanes by adding a requirement that drivers signal their intent to change lanes for at least 100 feet prior to the lane change. Yes, sir. Can I have your name, please?
Edward D. Hasbrook, City Attorney's Office, on
Yes,
behalf
sir.
of the Police Department.
Sure.
The ordinance amendment before you is basically much like in the requirement before turning, and in state law, it requires a signal of not less than 100 feet before you change lanes. Ours currently does not have the 100-foot objective marker, if you will. It just says change safely. The Police Department's adamant that the not less than 100-foot signal is important for safety because accidents happen when you think no one was there. And so this mirrors state law, much like the texting. We have just added that not only must you do so in a safe manner, but you must signal at least 100 feet, even for a lane change. It's the same as state law, and it's the same as turning right or left.
All right. Thank you very much. Does the major want to talk to? Did you have anything, sir? Okay.
Just in case of questions.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5BB?
I move we accept the recommendation.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Schuline. Any second? Second. We have a second from Commissioner Hale. Do we have any questions or discussion on item 5BB? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5BB from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Hale. Can I have your votes, please? The item is approved. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, now we go back to item 5A. Ofon and Tia, owner, Executive Luxury Car Service, LLC, Municipal Code 5323, 5624, 5645, and 5650, consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Executive Luxury Car Service, LLC, to operate 10 vehicles in limousine service. Hi. Have you filled out one of the blue forms? Yeah, we have it right here. Okay. Well, no, you don't need to do it now. You'll do it when you're done. That's fine. Just make sure to please fill one of these out. Can I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Ofanaman Tia. My address is 12428 Pittsburgh Avenue, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73120. And I wanted to start a limousine business and vehicle for hire. And so I went through the whole process, and I've kind of been guided by a mentor, someone that had a limousine company that started, Rick's Limousine, and he's kind of shown me the ropes. And so I purchased my first vehicle, and I've kind of went through the whole process. I'm waiting to be approved so I can continue in the steps.
All right, thank you very much. You can go ahead and fill out the form while we proceed on. Do we have staff input?
We've got a completed application before you, and so based on that, we're going to recommend approval as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Move approval.
Motion to approve from Commissioner George. Any second? Second. Second by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussions? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A from Commissioner George, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Wish you luck. Okay, we go on to item 5B. Carl Stickley, P.E., Guernsey, Inc., Municipal Code 32167. Consider request to change the speed limit on North Clawson Boulevard between Northwestern Avenue and Northwest 63rd Street from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour. And sir, when you're done talking, can you fill out one of these?
Yes, sir.
Can I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Stephen Cooksey, filling in for Carl. With Guernsey, my address is 6812 Northwest 25th Street in Bethany, 73008. So we're representing Chesapeake Energy. If you're familiar with their campus, Classen bisects their campus kind of into west and east campuses. Excuse me. And there's a number of pedestrian crossings going across Classen, and they have a concern with the speed limit, would like to reduce it to 30 miles an hour. Currently, the speed limit posted north of 63rd is 40 miles an hour. West of Western, in the Classen Curve area, it's posted at 35 miles an hour. There's currently not any speed limit signs along this stretch of Classen. According to the city records, I think the last time speed limit was posted, it was at 40 miles an hour. So given the number of pedestrian crossings, given the fact that the last speed limit sign people see when they are coming southbound on Classen, they see a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, so Chesapeake has concerns about people continuing to drive 40 miles an hour, and so they'd like to reduce it. We did a speed study. I actually hired a consultant to do a speed study that indicated that the 85th percentile speed in this stretch was between 28 and 32 miles an hour, which falls in line with the request to reduce it to 30 miles an hour. Also, the reduction from 40 to 30 also falls within an allowable reduction of speed limit of maximum of 10 miles an hour. So given all those facts, that's the request by our client, Chesapeake. Any questions?
No, we're fine. Thank you. Okay, staff input, please.
Okay, well, you've got our full report before you. As he mentioned, that they did have a consultant KME Engineering do a study of the area and found that the 85th percentile speed is basically basically in the range where they're requesting the 30 mile an hour speed limit. And therefore, staff has determined that it should not have any detrimental effect to the movement of traffic through the area, so we can support the request as submitted.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Move for approval.
We have a motion from Commissioner Littlefield to approve item 5B. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B from Commissioner Littlefield, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Votes, please. Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on to item 5C. Betty Atkins, Municipal Code 3269 and 32304. Consider a request to establish all-way stop control at the intersection of 1, South Wheatfield Avenue and Southwest 17th Street, and 2, South Wheatfield Avenue and Southwest 18th Street. Anybody here to talk on item 5C? Okay. Can we have staff input concerning item 5C, please?
Okay, we've got our comments before you. We used both the city's criteria and the MUTCD in evaluating these intersections for the use of all-way stop control. Neither intersection, due to traffic conditions, collision history, volumes, anything else, merits the use of all-way stop control. The 85th percentile speeds found in the area are basically at the speed limit, so there is no observed indicator that chronic speeding is an issue for the area. So at this point in time, we just don't have reason to support the request as submitted.
Thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5C?
Motion to deny.
We have a motion from Commissioner Hale to deny item 5C. We have a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second from Commissioner Miller. Do we have any discussion about item 5C? Ma'am?
I believe in staff's notes that yield signs could possibly be appropriate as they enter onto Wheatfield from 17th and 18th. Am I remembering correctly in the notes?
Well, in this particular case, because these are T-type intersections where 17th and 18th Street both end and Wheatfield Drive, those would be what we would ordinarily consider to be suitable candidates for yield signs. Okay. And we can just handle that by an administrative process. But at this point in time, since these are low-volume intersections, use of yields would be optional.
So that can happen without it being included in the motion?
That's
right?
correct, yeah.
And in the applicant's letter, although it's not in the request, the application request, they asked for speed limits to be posted as you enter their development. If those are not there at the places they requested, could those also be done?
Yes, posting the speed limit would just be basically an additional reminder.
Okay.
Of course, the one thing that you've seen is, in the speed study that we did, chronic speeding does not seem to be an issue for them offhand.
Okay.
But it would, it's one of those things that can always be done.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So it could be done or it will be done? Does it? I'm sorry?
It's something that could be done. Typically, especially on a street like this, which only runs from 15th Street and then goes about a quarter mile or so to the south. It's not a long street, and typically when the city posts speed limits coming into residential areas, we'll post them close to where the residential street comes in off an arterial. But as far as intermediate stop signs within an addition, we use them on a rather sparing basis.
So what I think is being asked is, does the applicant, if this got disapproved, have to give you a call to say, could you put up the yield signs? And
they're always welcome to, yeah.
Okay, so no action from here. Now, could we ask you to do that now? Or would it be better if the applicant just asked you?
It would probably be more beneficial for the applicant, but either way, like I said, at this point in time, there's no collision history, there's no speeding issues or anything else like that. Use of yield signs there are optional. There are probably more intersections in low-volume residential environments that don't have any posted controls on them than do here in the city. So, in this particular case, traffic from 17th or 18th Streets, both are constrained to either turn left or right. So typically those are not high-speed maneuvers.
Okay, so as of right now, from this motion and this action, there's not going to be yield signs and the speed limit sign put up.
That's correct.
As of right
Now, if the applicant decides that they want to work with us and say, hey, would you consider yield signs on like 17th and 18th Street, we would handle that administratively.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
I feel like the petitions matter to me. So if there's a way to not belabor and delay getting some sort of, they believe there's an issue that needs some relief. It may not, the science may not warrant what they're asking for, but I feel like listening to their voice is important. So I would like to request that we do post the speed limit signs and the yield signs even without the applicant here. That's my request.
That's
Does that
fine. We
need to
can
be
take care of
okay.
that.
All right.
We'll go ahead and take care of that.
Okay, very good. That's what I thought I heard. All right, good. Okay, so any other
Yeah, I've got a
discussion?
comment.
Yes, sir.
You just said that there's more intersections that don't have any signage of any kind, stops, yields in the city than do?
I'd say so, yes.
Is that mostly in new subdivisions? Because it seems like in every older, any older subdivision anywhere around, there's stop signs on just about every corner. And it always seemed a little strange when there's a yield instead of a stop in some, because you have I don't know. It always seems strange to me that we'd have yields instead of stop signs. But, so this subdivision isn't that old. And so when it's first platted, why weren't stop signs put in at that point? I mean, is that the developer, it's their responsibility to buy the stop signs and put them in, or how does that work?
No, a lot of times we'll work with developers because it's not uncommon for us to get requests from developers for things like stops and yields as part of the initial phase of development. If they just want to basically assign some basic traffic controls, and we'll look at those, and more often than not, they're asking for yield signs. In certain cases, they might ask for stops, but if it's at a location like, say, there's two intersecting collectors, proposed collectors within an addition, they ask for all-way stop. That's something that we could bring forward, but ordinarily, most developers are opting for yields as a general rule, if they contact us at all.
Okay. Well, all the 6 stop signs seems to me a little bit excessive here, but it just seems strange that there's not a stop sign on 17th and 18th that's coming out onto that collector. It's not a collector, whatever that arterial, whatever that main street through is,
Wheatfield?
Wheatfield. Seems like there should be a stop coming up to that before you turn out, but the other, I don't know. So I guess if you're going to put yields there, I guess that will notify or at least have something for them.
Well, one of the things that was brought out when we changed the yield signs to allow the staff to just do them on their own was this exact same subject. A new housing area comes in, the first 2-3 blocks are being done. There's no stop control, no yield control, pretty clear where the main road is and the left turns and the right turns off there. But then as they start going further in and creating section stage 2 and stage 3 and all that, the volume of traffic increases, the traffic concerns happen, they come in and ask for yield signs. And then eventually it gets that it's all done and they look at the traffic flow, and now we're concerned with stop signs, sharing intersection, that kind of stuff where it comes to us. But one of the things that was happening was as the developments went on, these yield control requests came in, and we decided the staff could just do them.
Okay. All right. Well.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
What will be communicated back to the applicant that once a vote is taken, if this is denied, what will be communicated back to the applicant?
Well, ordinarily, we don't typically touch bases with the applicant again. However, we can, because we do get email addresses, we'll go ahead and send her a quick summary on the actions of the commission and what was decided.
Where I'm going with that is it seems like maybe this is a staged approach. Get the yields in, evaluate it 6 months. If the yields are not satisfying the concerns of the folks signing the petition, then they can come back.
Right,
I mean, it just seems like I'm not sure that everybody knows you can come back, and to watch progress of your first request. I just feel like we want to probably communicate what their next steps would be, is all I'm asking.
Okay. So we have any other talk about item 5C? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale to disapprove item 5C, and seconded by Commissioner Miller. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is disapproved. Okay. And we do have a request from Commissioner Yonkel to go ahead and proceed with the yield signs and the speed limit signs, and to let the applicant know. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we go on now to item 5D. Brenda Anderson, Municipal Code 32237, consider request for a no right turn on red restriction on northbound South Pennsylvania Avenue at its intersection with eastbound Southwest 74th Street. Do you have anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, you've got our comments before you. Actually, there's a good graphic that's come up on your screen right now. It's a color graphic that shows the effect that a no turn on red restriction would have at this particular intersection. Especially in the morning, there's a significant component of the northbound movement, which is for the right turn movement, and because there's such a short dedicated right turn lane, it would cause what we've determined to be what we would term as lane starvation, which would mean that people wouldn't be able to get into that lane, and those that are there would basically start causing a queue to spill back onto Pennsylvania Avenue. And as a result, the level of service, or the amount of delay experienced by northbound drivers on Pennsylvania, especially during the morning commute, would be increased significantly. And so in the absence of a collision history that indicates that there's anything that warrants looking at this particular intersection, it's got adequate decision sight distance, it's running at all things considered, a not unreasonable level of service, but there's no justification to impose a turn restriction at this location at this time. So for that reason, staff is not recommending approval of this item.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
Motion to deny.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to deny item 5D. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion? Yes, sir. Any discussion on item 5D? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner George, second by Commissioner Hale, to disapprove item 5D. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is disapproved. Okay, now we go on to item 5E. Michael Smith, Municipal Code 3269 and 32304. Consider request to establish all-way stop control at the intersection of South Ross Avenue and Southwest 49th Street. Yes, sir, I have your piece of paper. Can I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, my name's Michael Smith. I live at 2624 Southwest 49th, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73119. That intersection during this time of year, there's traffic flow sort of slowed down, but we got school children. That intersection gets real busy. I've seen school buses that's not even supposed to be in that neighborhood drive through the intersection, not even stop at the stop signs. I've called the Oklahoma City Police Department and the school board both on it. And we're starting a neighborhood watch over there, and we're trying to make it safer for the kids where they, you get kids 7, 8 years old on a bicycle, they don't pay attention. And they do right across that intersection. And I don't want to see a child injured. It's just a big gig of mine. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Can I have staff input, please?
Okay, we did review this intersection with respect to the city's all-way stop control criteria and the criteria found in the MUTCD. Based on traffic volumes and collisions, the intersection doesn't meet any of those warrant criteria. We also did conduct a speed study on the street, in particular focusing on Ross Drive. Ross Avenue, and found the 85th percentile speed on Ross is running around 29 miles an hour. The highest speed that we recorded during our study was 32. So at this point in time, based on traffic conditions, history, and the collision history, we just don't have reason to support the all-way stop control at this time. You did hear from Mr. Smith that there's, that the neighborhood has observed issues relative to traffic speeds, and he's expressed a concern for safety at this particular location. So with that, action on this item is going to be at the discretion of the commission.
Thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5E. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any talk on item 5E? Yes, sir.
One of the things that stands out to me is that it would make Ross Avenue more consistent with the other cross streets. Murray, 48th, 49th, 51st, well, 49th is the one in question, but 52nd, 53rd, they have stop signs. They're not always stop signs, though. Would there be any consideration in amending it where they were, what would this be, east-west stop signs and not an all-way stop?
Currently, they've got east-west stop signs in place. What the request is for is to convert the intersection to an all-way stop by adding signs on Ross.
Thanks, I needed the clarity.
Yeah, the other streets to the north and south where they tie into Ross currently have east-west stop control. And just a little bit of history, it was just a few months ago that another resident in this area, a lady named Ms. Sanchez, had come in and she'd put in a request over at Southwest 55th Street for all-way stop control. And that was a request that the commission did approve.
Thanks.
Okay, any more discussion on item 5E? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5E, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 5F. Corey Lips, P.E., Project Manager, Cardinal Engineering, Inc., and Traffic Management Division, Municipal Code 32296, 32300, 32366, and 32402. Consider request to remove 2-hour metered parking on the north side of East Sheridan Avenue from approximately 47 feet west to 91 feet west of the west curb line of Charlie Christian Avenue and establish a full-time passenger loading zone and commercial loading zone in the same place. Yes, sir, I have your form. I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Corey Lips, Cardinal Engineering, 1015 North Broadway Avenue. The staff's recommendations in the report are acceptable.
Thank you very much. Staff input, please.
Okay, well, you've got all our comments before you. This is basically a modification to an existing plan that was proposed at the time development started on the north side of Sheridan. Basically, what Mr. Lips has put forward is a loading zone on the north side where they originally had it approved for 2-hour metered parking. Our only addition was to make it usable for passenger loading and commercial loading purposes, and then making that on a full-time basis. So these spaces will not be available for parking. And other than that, we recommend approval of the request as it's presented.
Okay. Do we have a motion concerning item 5F?
I move to approve the request with the staff's recommendation.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5F with the staff recommendation. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner George. Any discussion on this item? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5F to include staff recommendation. Second, that was from Commissioner Schuline. Seconded by Commissioner George. Have your votes, please. Okay, item is approved. We go on now to item 5G. Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., and Traffic Management Division, Municipal Codes 32296, 32297, 32209, 299, 32300, and 32402. Consider request to 1, establish a full-time passenger loading zone on the west side of South Mickey Mantle Drive from approximately 90 feet north to 190 feet north of the north curb line of Wanda Jackson Way, and 2, establish a commercial loading zone within the same limits of the passenger loading zone. Yes, sir. I have your form. Can I have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes?
Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City, 73104. And I'm here on behalf of the applicant today. The area shown on the image is in front of the new Brickopolis Entertainment building. It will, by doing this and allowing the passenger loading and commercial loading, it will really fulfill kind of what goes on there anyway. Mickey Mantle's pretty wide. Doesn't seem to be a traffic problem when there is passenger and commercial loading. It operates as a 2-lane, but it's almost 4 lanes wide. So, and we agree with the staff's comments.
All right, thank you very much. Staff input, please.
I don't think I have anything further to add. The one reason why we did throw in the commercial loading zone use and making this a loading zone on a full-time basis is because loading zones can be used for parking purposes, and after like 6 o'clock. So one of the reasons why we threw it in there to be used on a full-time basis. Valet services, which have got a follow-on application for, are typically run during the evening hours, and so consequently, if it was open for parking purposes, it would not be usable for that. And the reason for adding commercial loading designation would be because typically commercial loading activities don't occur during the same time that like peak activities are going on in the adjacent business. So this would kind of fulfill both needs. So, and for that reason, we're recommending it as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5G?
I move that it be approved with the staff condition included.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5G with staff recommendation. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline to approve item 5G with the staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. We now go to item 5H, Timothy W. Johnson, P.E., President, Johnson & Associates, Inc., Municipal Code 32401, 32402, and 32411. Consider the addition of a valet loading zone within the passenger loading zone on the west side of South Mickey Mantle Drive from approximately 90 feet north to 190 feet north of the north curb line of Wanda Jackson Way. Yes, sir.
Tim Johnson again on behalf of the applicant. Again, this is an entertainment venue, and it's coupled with the proposed miniature golf, which is being constructed across the canal from the site, owned by the same person. So he actually also owns a vacant lot east on Reno at 1000 East Reno, and the intent here is to use the valet parking to shuttle cars out of Bricktown, just on the other side of Lincoln, and facilitate his entertainment as well as the other venues around there. We have submitted on Friday the application for a revocable permit to allow us to occupy this valet space. And with that, we agree with the staff's recommendations on this.
All right, thank you. Staff input?
We don't really have anything further to comment. Kind of a discretionary item on the part of the commission. But as you know, Mickey Mantle Drive is an exceptionally wide 2-lane road, and there is a passenger loading zone immediately to the north of this on the same side of the street. For Mickey Mantle Steakhouse, this is basically a continuation of a passenger loading zone that will also offer, or someone will be able to operate a valet service from it as well. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5H?
Move approval.
We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5H.
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item? He mentioned he submitted something Friday as a...
I believe that about. Did you say that your client has submitted a valet? Yeah, there's a revocable permit to operate for valet companies to operate from passenger loading zones that have got a valet loading designation. But that's an administrative permitting process. That's signed off on by the Public Works Director and a representative from the Municipal Counselor's Office. In Chapter 50, there is a permitting process that's created to handle this.
All right, thank you for explaining that. Okay, any other discussions on item 5H? We have a motion from Commissioner George to approve item 5H, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? All right, item is approved. We go on now to item 5I, Sherry Wells, Municipal Code 3269. Consider the installation of a flashing warning sign at the intersection of North Sooner Road and Northeast 122nd Street. Do we have anybody help? There it is, and there's the paperwork. Yes, ma'am, if I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Sherry Wells, 7416 Northeast 116th in Edmond. I'm here today about the intersection of Sooner Road and Northeast 122nd. It currently has stationary four-way stops, and I regularly see cars crossing the intersection without stopping. And you can see their faces. They don't even seem to see the stop signs. The stop signs are far to the right. It's a wide intersection. The north and southbound lanes have 5 lanes, and the eastbound and westbound lanes have 4 lanes. So it's pretty wide. There are a lot of trees, grassy areas, and there are also signs indicating nearby Interstate 44 and nearby Interstate 35. So there are a lot of lights, a lot of visual activity, and I feel like if you were to put a flashing beacon and elevate it and put it in the center of the intersection, it might draw more attention. Also, I was traveling through last week at night. One of the 2 street lights was burned out, and I felt like if a flashing beacon would have been there, it would help eliminate, because you just had one street light that was illuminating the whole area.
Just real quick on the street light, did you notify OG&E?
No, I didn't.
We'll go ahead and take care of it. Do you happen to recall which corner that was on?
I believe it was the, I'm looking at it, the southeast, I believe, light.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We'll take care of reporting that
Okay.
after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for letting us know.
All right, is that it, ma'am?
That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Can we have staff input, please?
Okay, you've got our summary of comments before you. The only thing I want to call to your attention is we did pull a 5-year collision history looking at this particular intersection, and in the 5-year period from January 2010 through December of 2014, there were 29 collisions recorded. 14 had a cited cause of failure to stop or failure to yield. The Federal Highway Administration does offer some recommendations for what they call low-cost safety enhancements for use at always stop-controlled intersections, and the use of an overhead flashing warning beacon would probably be appropriate at this location given the collision experience that we're seeing. So it's for that reason that we would recommend approval of the warning beacon as requested.
All right, thank you. Do you have a motion concerning item 5I?
I make a motion to approve the
We have
request.
a motion to approve item 5I from Commissioner Miller. Do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Yonkel. Any discussion on this item? Ma'am?
Is there anything else that could enhance the visibility of needing to stop at this intersection is wide open? And as you approach, and it was, I think we had earlier discussed stop aheads. I'm in this intersection a lot. I don't remember if there are stop aheads. I'm just used to being very alert for people running it or blowing through the intersection for some reason. I haven't been paying attention if there's stop aheads. Is there anything else that could enhance this? Because although the flashing is certainly a step in the right direction, anything would be helpful.
Well, a lot of times
Flow at this intersection.
I've seen the larger stop signs compared to a traditional size. If these are the traditional size, because it's a 3-lane intersection, you may need the next size up or something.
Well, we could use larger stop signs in this particular case. At more remote always stop locations, especially on larger streets, some communities have placed like rumble strips in advance. I mean, you'll come across those like on state highways where that's hit an off-ramp that might terminate into a stop condition that they want to draw attention to. But I think at this point in time, with the overhead flashing beacon, which is going to be visible from a considerable distance away, because it'll have a mounting height of somewhere in the neighborhood of about 17 feet over the roadway, that will be a very conspicuous change. But we can certainly look at using larger stop signs in addition to the beacon.
And then the funding and how this all works, does this go into the normal street signage?
This is probably an application that we will be able to handle in-house, because our traffic operations group has got a fairly well-stocked yard of poles and arms and other signal heads, and so this is something that will only require a single pole. So we will send this out as a service request to the street department to have constructed.
Would it be possible to see how well the beacon does before we take any other action? I mean, before we change the stop signs, before we make a lot of radical changes, just to see if this light does as what the applicant has asked, that she proposes that it will do?
Well, we can certainly do a follow-up study. I mean, the collision information is stuff that we get. The Oklahoma Department of Transportation does provide local government agencies access to their what they call their safety database, which is populated with records from the Department of Public Safety. And that's what we use in preparing these requests. And that's how we were able to pull through the collision history to find out that 14 of the 29 collisions had the cited causes as from the reporting officer was failure to stop or yield. And so once we've got an installation date on this, we can look at the records, going forward from that point. But, obviously we won't be able to give you a 5-year turnaround time until, 5 years from now.
I would be in a different position than Commissioner Hill. I think going in with what we have available to us at one time would be useful at this intersection. The larger stop signs with the flasher. I would like to say, let's make sure there's stop ahead. Now, I know you'll see a beacon, but there's also stop signs, smaller ones there already. This intersection needs everything we can put at it. I feel strongly about that. It's okay that we might not agree. But I'd like to see whatever we have available to be put against this intersection.
And that's fine. We'll go and look at that. And one thing was commented to us that looks like the pavement markings on the roadway could stand to be refreshed, so we'll put in service requests for that work as well.
Okay. Any other discussion on item 5I? Yes, sir.
I have no objection to the single beacon, but I'm curious if there have been any studies that compare the effectiveness of that compared to the stop signs that have the LED boundary on them that flash, like the one at 122nd Broadway. Would that be more effective or equally as effective? More contemporary option?
Well, we've got, there were some LED-enhanced stop signs that were installed on a temporary basis, and this will be coming to you at your next commission meeting over at the intersection of County Line Road and West Wilshire Boulevard. And I just got a report earlier today that one of those stop signs had been knocked down. A single flasher such as this, the traffic-rated poles are a lot more durable than the posts used to support those. And right now, it's still working, but I'm not sure if it's going to work for very much longer, because I don't know if it's running off its battery only, because I was told that the solar panels were broken on it. But I'm not sure if they're not functioning. We'll find that out. In 24 hours or so, we'll find out whether they're still working or not. But as far as a more durable solution goes, having something that's mounted up over the center of the intersection that supported on a traffic signal pole would be definitely a more durable solution to it. So I can't say if one is more visible than the other, or one may be better than the other. There's no studies to that effect that I'm aware of yet.
Okay, any other discussion on item 5I? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5I from Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Yonkel. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, we go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. Anybody wishes to speak? Okay. Reports and other items from traffic commissioners, etc. Start on over here. Commissioner Warfield, do you have anything?
Got about an hour, don't we? From Ward 2, quickly, I'll get these off of my mind first. You all may recall the Western Avenue project between I-44 and Grand Boulevard on Northwestern Avenue. That was a result of Chesapeake Energy closing 58th Street, which impacted, that was one of 3 streets in that neighborhood, Meadowbrook Acres. And there was a huge effort to try to figure out how the folks that live in that neighborhood could get in and out of there safely. There's line of sight issues, they still exist, on and on. But anyway, the project put a center turn 5th lane in. It's done, it's striped, their traffic control lights aren't up yet, but it's already made an incredible improvement for both Brookhaven and Meadowbrook Acres neighborhoods. The ability to have a center turn lane is awesome. And it also helps the folks that want to keep going too, that don't want to sit and wait on me to get home. So that was, I wanted to share that. I'm sorry that Officer Tompkins isn't here today, but we approved a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Western Avenue between, I think it's roughly 47th and 40th Streets in the past couple of commission decision hearings because the streetscape project is ongoing there. I'd say that could easily say that they're 50%, close to 50% done on the east side, but folks are just totally disregarding that speed limit. They continue to fly through there, and I'd like to bring that to the attention of somebody that could get some police officers out there and start getting people in the habit of slowing down. There are also construction workers present. And I'd like to see people start to learn now that they need to slow down through there. So those are my 2 Ward 2 issues. The traffic, I never can say it right. The traffic calming subcommittee, did you all read your homework? Good, I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome. What we've identified is that there appear to be a lot of things that calm traffic. The challenge I think that this commission has is finding the ones that we think might work the best, and then finding a way to implement them. So what's sort of been going on in my mind as I continue to read on this, all internet articles, different cities all over the place, what seems to be the most effective is where cities have a neighborhood traffic calming program. And that program has processes and how neighborhoods apply, how things are paid for, and it also has in it the inventory of things that the neighborhoods can apply for. It's probably the same processes where staff goes out and they look at the problems and they deem really there truly is one, whereas in the couple of cases today, there really wasn't one, so there's no need to implement something. But it makes sense to me that there's something like a program that has a content and a process. One of the things that I can assure you that I've read the most on that's the most effective are speed humps and speed bumps. And that's in existing neighborhoods. In new neighborhood construction, which falls over into the planning department set of our work, there's a lot of other devices and techniques and designs that can be implemented in the planning process and become part of that neighborhood where they're not coming back to us in 15 or 20 years because something went wrong. So I'm not privy, I'm not knowledgeable enough to totally understand the next process, but what I would like to see this commission do is find a way sooner rather than later, like perhaps maybe we could get something on the agenda next month, to start moving this process forward. Maybe it's in the form of a resolution that I don't know the next step. But I would like to see, having given all the work that JB and I have done and what we've presented to you folks and the discussions that we've had, I think it's time to bite something off here and make a commitment that we're going to put something together, take a look at it ourselves, decide if it could be effective, and send it on to council. And I'd love to hear back from all of you.
On the program that you're talking about, would it be a citizen run? Would it be something where we could make a recommendation to city council and says traffic calming here's the situation, here's the toolbox of things. Once we all agree, Traffic Commission and the City Council agree on that toolbox, then it defers to staff, and they just implement, like they do the yield signs, they just implement off of the, and if there's any problems, like if a neighborhood comes in and says, we would like this, and the staff goes, no, we don't, we could become the mitigator, or somebody becomes the mitigator of that talk or whatever. Is that kind of what you're thinking, or?
I think even more specific than that, where it's called a neighborhood traffic calming program, and in its content is a process where neighborhoods would apply for an inventory if it's even one thing that's outside of what we already have today, which is a stop sign. The hope is it would be more than one thing. It might be a handful of things, or three or four things. The plan would have to include, of course, funding, and it would seem to me that a lot of these, the one or two or three things that are making sense, that are effective, in my opinion, and certainly only my opinion, speed humps, driver feedback devices that we've talked about, those kinds of things are effective and they're affordable. So if a neighborhood perceived that they were having a problem, they would make an application in that plan to apply for X speed humps, let's just say, and then staff would go out and they would study the intersection or the area to determine whether or not the neighborhood's perception is correct or not, and then there would be an approval for that speed hump, and then there would be how is the neighborhood going to pay for it?
And then who would approve it? What level are you talking about? Staff just does it, or?
No, I don't. That's a good question. I don't know how that would work. It would seem to me that it would be most fair that it would be within the confines of this commission, and they come and they apply for that particular thing, and then this commission makes a decision whether or not to approve them moving forward with it. To me, it's not unlike the same process that a neighborhood has to go through to get like an entrance marker sign. There's still a hearing process. It's before the Board of Adjustments, I do believe. So there's a body that approves it or disapproves it. But I think what we're trying to do is get those items that we don't have today into something that's specifically designed for neighborhoods to apply for, have scrutiny, get approval, they pay for it, it's done. JB, I know you have thoughts.
Can I just throw something in here real quick?
Please.
I believe there would be a neighborhood approval process that would be not unlike their request for a stop sign. I think that a lot of the programs that I've read about online, I mean, they have specific criteria that they have to meet to qualify for a traffic calming device or procedure, and they would have to get the same signatures or approvals from the adjacent neighbors, probably 67% or more.
But as you know, so you're saying it would be treated like a stop sign request compared to sending a letter to the staff like we do with yield signs. Because yield signs right now, they could just go to the staff and the staff says yes.
I think traffic calming would be more significant than a yield sign. It would be something that really would require neighborhood approval. I mean, and at
so
a
you're
high
saying
level.
Signed off by the people in the area
Right.
and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
is what you're thinking more. Okay. Okay, wait a second. Let's let him talk. Yes, sir.
And you've got my respect, both you gentlemen, for the amount of time and effort I do. My hat's off, because it's taken a lot, and it showed in your report, and I appreciate it very much. My only concern is that if we do set this up, and we'll get further into this as it's on the agenda for another meeting, but that we have some criteria set, because we all know we've seen people come before us that, oh my gosh, the speeding up and down our streets is horrible, and then staff goes out and we've got 23 miles an hour at 80. So, I mean, we need some type of criteria to say, oh my gosh, yes, this neighborhood does need this calming effort with the city's backing.
Totally agree. I'm sure JB does. He's shaking his head yes. So it's not that a neighborhood could just go put in speed bumps nilly-willy. Is that right? But staff would have to have an opportunity to look at those requests and I think study them on the same basis that they would any other application. The only difference is is now we're not talking about what we're used to studying, which are stop sign criteria. Now we're studying speed bump effect or driver feedback device effect. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that what you may have been alluding to is that with the petition process for a stop sign, this would require a greater number of people in a defined neighborhood boundary in order to proceed with something like that. These are just things that we're reading from municipalities that have these things that seem to be successful.
Well, just a couple points to throw out there. It's just as you create what you're thinking here, if we try to get our arms around it, neighborhoods that don't have a homeowners association. So then they'd have to just throw money in a hat maybe, compared to a homeowners association that could vote off of their funding that they already have. Something like that. Then the next question, there's two questions following up here. The next one, more to the staff and the counselor. Going to city council, once we decide what we think, would something like this just have to go to city council and just say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing, you got any input because we're ready to move on, or do they need to approve this and it needs to go in some ordinance or something of that nature? Just some thoughts, nothing official right now.
Well, I guess an element that you have to consider in any sort of a program like this is that they all come at a certain cost. I mean, if you're constructing, a physical feature in the road, you're putting in like a radar driver feedback sign, a permanent installation, or anything along that line. I mean, you're looking at something that typically comes at, there's probably not an insignificant construction cost associated for that. So if this is something that ultimately is, a program that's created for it, obviously the city council will need to have some level of involvement because they're responsible for the expenditure of public funds.
Well, that was going to be my second question about funding, but my first question was, if we came with this box of tools of things that could be used, does the city council have to approve that program or just be knowledgeable of it with an information briefing compared to vote in to approve? That was my first question. And then the second question was going to be, of course, they have the money, city council, so if we wanted to be part of it and say, no, we think that that's something like stop signs the city should pay for, then of course city council would have to budget it and put that into the money and that kind of thing. So I was throwing it to the other side here of the first question is, what do we have to say to city council if we create a program, like he's talking about, some traffic calming program, what do we need to tell city council? Do we just let them know that we're doing something like this, or do we need to get their approval? Is it an ordinance thing where it's got to be formally put in to the record? That's my first question. Of course, the answer may not be right now, but if you have some counsel.
Sorry about that. I actually have a couple of things. At this moment, it's very vague and ambiguous what we're discussing here. I think we would have to come to some type of consensus of how and what you're recommending exactly. And what it seems, and what I'm hearing is, it would go towards an ordinance type change. But again, it's a very ambiguous, vague concept that we're discussing at the moment.
So you're saying it would be an ordinance of, in Oklahoma City, these things are allowed on our streets?
Possibly.
Something like that.
Possibly. Again, it's a very vague thing. So until we have some type of consensus and you actually have a concept of what we're wanting to do.
Sure. But that's what you're kind of leaning to, is city council would have to approve, we have to get this into the official record through city council.
Yes.
And then the second, so once we would do that, say, okay, city council, here's this program that we kind of think, here's all the toolboxes, here's how it would work, here's some, if it's a hump, this is what it looks like, the engineering part of it, whatever. These things, we request you allow these things to be in neighborhoods, something like that, by this ordinance. Then the next question would be, would we just say, okay, neighborhoods pay for it, how far neighborhoods have to pay for it? That creates a problem, because what happens if 3 or 4 people don't want it, but they're going to get the ability to have it, compared to homeowners associations, which is pretty formal, and they can allocate money as they wish. So it creates all those kind of issues compared to, should there be some funds set aside by the city council to support this effort once it's approved by us, like with the street signalizations or street signs and stuff like that, where they already have money put aside to support it. So all to be thought about, all those kind of things. So where we're at right now is they have created a product that has been given to us. So now staff, with the counselor input, writes something? Is that the next thing that we do?
I would say it's not quite at product level either. It still needs to be put into product level before we can go forward with a recommendation of some type. Right now, it seems, please correct me if I'm misunderstood you, it seems that there still isn't a consensus or anything put before you that could be written as a recommendation at the moment. At this moment, it's a concept, albeit a very good concept, and you already have your tools, but it doesn't have a structure.
But who would create that? The subcommittee, would your council?
It would need to be either something proposed to you or something brought to you, or have a discussion next traffic meeting, and see if we can come to some kind of consensus, or if a concept is presented to you.
Oh, okay.
And have it, and come to see if we can have some type of consensus or some kind of structure put to these tools that have been brought forward.
Me and the staff and you write a item for our agenda to actually talk about, to take us to that next level. The subcommittee write it with you guys.
If I may ask a question of the subcommittee, gentlemen, have you reached a point where you have a structure that you would want to put forward before this traffic commission, or are we at a point where we want to have a conversation about the structure?
May I, JB, are you ready to?
We could be ready, but I do know I have a couple things I'd like to add, and I have some more
Please
to
go.
discuss today.
Please do.
Yeah, okay.
What's so great about committees and groups of people is there's different thoughts and there's different elements that come to make things happen. From my perspective, where we have been successful is that we've identified that the city of Oklahoma City lacks in an inventory of items to offer to neighborhoods to help solve traffic issues, whether it's their perception or it's identified as a positive, an actual thing by staff after they go look at something. We lack in inventory. We've identified that. The other thing that we've identified is that there are a lot of different traffic calming devices that are used in other municipalities around the United States. Europe was the first area in the world to really study and implement these things, so there's a longer history there of the effectiveness of them. Canada has very aggressive traffic calming programs. So I think having identified those two things, not being, I'm a traffic commissioner, JB's a traffic commissioner, but we're not experts on how could JB and I ever be put to task to test the effectiveness of, say, a driver feedback device or a speed bump. I think it's discussion. It's where do we go next with this? How do we produce it? Who's in charge of producing it? If maybe City Council needs to appropriate some money to the Traffic Management Division to assign somebody to taking on this task and putting this together, where when it's done, it makes sense, it mirrors successful ones in other cities, if it's a sensible product, and we've looked at it, and we've approved it, and then we send it to council, and they look at it, and then off we go. I don't know how much farther I can go. I can sit down and I can put something together with JB. His input would be tremendous. We could certainly sit down and put something together, but I'd hate to miss out on professionals, having input on it or knowing what could work better or what doesn't work. I'm sorry to diatribe, it's complicated.
Just a second, if I could. What I just heard there, what seemed to flow, is a resolution. The words he just kind of said from the Traffic Commission to create a resolution to the City Council saying what he just said. Those two main points. We feel this, a solution might be something like this, that goes to city council, they accept it, they don't provide any comment back, and then we proceed on with a program that gets implemented. I'm just throwing it out there, just for the words he was saying sounded just like a resolution.
I would say that it's possible to get to resolution. I wouldn't say that we're at that point now and going forward today with a resolution.
Oh, no.
I would suggest possibly having this as an agenda item and then possibly staff and myself looking into what other steps are available to you at the next council, or at the next traffic meeting.
Which is what we're kind of
And,
looking into.
yeah, and after this meeting, there's going to be a follow-on meeting with staff with the subcommittee, so we'll discuss this further.
Okay, so we can have something on the agenda for next meeting, and we can formally talk about it and come up with a action plan or something, a move-on plan. Okay? Good. So you had your button pushed, so yes, ma'am.
From fresh eyes, reading it, not being involved in the subcommittee, my thoughts on the information, I mean, beyond my appreciation for the hours and hours and time you've spent on this, is I would like to see the product. The description is one thing, but for it to then be activated into a reality, I thought, show me the difference of a bump versus a hump. You know, these things. I mean, I got it, but it would almost then create this catalog for me as I was reading through it. What do these tools look like? The thing that I would not want to see us do, the word program scares me to death. Because when people hear program, it's like, ugh. And I don't feel like putting the word program sets the concept up for success. My interpretation of what you've done, the beautiful work you've done, is you've created more tools to put in the toolbox, so when people are asking for stop signs or reduction in speed limits, we finally have something that says, you know what, stop signs don't work here, but would your neighborhood be willing to test one of these tools? So they become our alpha test, or, you know, whatever the alpha and beta is on this thing, but it's just a more robust set of solutions is what I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but you have made this, I think, a whole lot more simple than it was a year ago. There's a nice set of possible solutions that we can offer up instead of stop signs. So I don't know. I don't feel like you have to take it and sell it to a neighborhood. I think it's just a different set of solutions in our toolkit when the neighborhood comes to the commission. And then we ask them to test or whatever. But I think your work is much further along than what you're really realizing, in my opinion. I mean, I think it was fabulous. I'm a visual learner, so I wanted to see pictures. But I feel like you're much further on the path than we're realizing. Those are my 3 cents worth. It was wonderful, by the way.
We had some more over here. Anybody? Yes.
One
Yes,
comment.
sir.
You know, traffic calming, they're all traffic control devices, just like we refer to the MUTCD for most of the stop signs and the signals and all the other stuff. There's already, all these devices have been put in, tested, approved, give you the test results on how they function. So we don't need to do that part of it, I don't think. I think that's already done. We just need to reference. Do we want to use the Institute of Transportation, ITE, and use their recommendation? These are their traffic calming devices. They've done their own testing. Reference that like we would an MUTCD, and then make the choices there.
Which is, I think, where we're thinking about for the next meeting. I think what we need to maybe have as an action item is to formally receive the report from the subcommittee. We received a piece of paper, but to formally take it, put it into record, and then we can formally talk about it, we can vote on receiving it, and then create an action from that, which may just be to defer to staff to write something with the concerns that we've talked about, like how would we document it? Would it have to be an ordinance? Can it just be something that just happens? Does city council have to approve it? Of course, if it's an ordinance, yes. Do they just have to know about it, what we're doing, through an informational brief, through a resolution? So we gave them some options of what we're thinking of what to do, but I think we need to formally vote on it and say, this is where we want to go. Because we may take this report and could say, nope, we don't need to do any of that stuff. What we're doing right now is fine. We don't need it. I mean, that's what the subcommittee went out to go do, is to receive input. So I think we just need to formally accept it as what it is and then create action off of that, and we need that to be on the agenda so we can vote.
We need to ask them to adopt something, just like they adopted MUTCD.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, along the same lines, I totally agree with you, but it seems like you can almost boil it down into small parts, and instead of this big, I talk about a big package that has everything in it, but I think what I'm hearing more than anything is that, it's the speed hump, okay, that the city doesn't allow at this point, and that's really the bottom line, I think. That's the new, that would change this, what you're looking for. The real expensive feedback on how fast you're going, those things are like get knocked over and cost, what do they cost, 10 grand a piece or something, and some huge amount of money. And, the speed hump has, for whatever reason, has never been allowed in the city. And although I think, aren't we testing one or two around? I thought there was a test done. And I guess maybe just for the liability on the city part maybe is why they didn't want it. If you hit one of those humps at 40 miles an hour, you're going to do major damage to automobiles and people inside automobiles. But, that's, I think, really, that would be the big change if the city would allow those. And that would be a huge, the other part of that, though, is that speed hump is, I have no idea, $5,000 or $10,000 to install versus stop sign, which is $250 or $500, whatever they are a piece. So there could be, much more money needed to put speed humps in than put stop signs in. So, then all the other thing, obviously as far as new subdivisions and stuff like that, I think the Planning Commission, the City Council is looking much harder. I think they require traffic studies now that they didn't used to and things like that. But so all those things obviously would be great too. But the speed hump, if you're going to that's really, I think, what needs to be decided upon, whether the city, we think that they're good for the city. I've been in cities that you have them and use them. I was out in Santa Barbara not too long ago, and they have them around, and they make you stop. I mean, they slow you way down. You can't go over 10 miles an hour over them, something like that. And they're big. The ones out there were, probably 18 inches tall and maybe 6 feet long. They were big, big humps. And so they work, that's for sure. But anyway, then the other thing, when you mentioned the western, where the middle turn lane is completed, I'm wondering, does that mean that that we should relook at that no right turn on red on where Grand comes up to 63rd? Remember that was put in a couple of years ago because this widening hadn't occurred yet and was in the process to let people get into the neighborhood more quickly. So now that it's much easier to get into the neighborhood, I'm wondering if that no right turn on red, because it does queue up in the mornings, kind of like the Pennsylvania that we denied today. It does slow people down pretty good in the morning. So I don't know if it's still needed or not, I guess is the question.
These were a series of different elements to solve a series of different problems. And what you have on Western Avenue, southbound from Grand Boulevard, before is 2 lanes of traffic moving southbound. And what you have today is still 2 lanes of traffic traveling southbound. The challenge at Northwest 56th Street is that you can't even turn southbound out of it most of the time, because it's a continuous flow of traffic. And the intent of the no right on red was to be synchronized with the lights and give a little bit of break in that continuous soundbound traffic, and it's been effective. So, I live there, I see it every day. I'm not seeing cars queued all the way back, to the Upper Crust Pizza or anything like that. I'm seeing 4 or 3. And it really hasn't been that. And another thing, too, probably 75% of the people that approach that run it. So
that gets rid of the queuing, I guess.
But it has given a little opportunity. It really has helped, and I'd hate to see that go away for that neighborhood, because that one challenge, it did have an impact. And we'll see.
Okay. Any other talk about Commissioner Littlefield's stuff?
JB, we'll get together. We will put paper and pencil together, and we will come up with something much more concrete. I appreciated this today. I know JB did what we presented to you 2 months ago, which is to educate yourselves on what we found and where we're going, and so that's the plan.
So the plan is next month, we'll have something that we can talk about for.
There you go.
And then to proceed on.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right.
And on that same, is that something that, if we're going to talk about speed humps, for instance, is that something you'll put together some research so we can talk about how it affects other cities or something? Got a lot of it.
I'll be talking with members of the subcommittee about that, because it's no small undertaking to have have a policy fleshed out. It's one thing to develop like design parameters and maybe criteria for their use that you might want to consider. It's another thing, of course, the other element of that is that, for every one person that may support something like that, there may be somebody that doesn't, and so how would a municipality balance basically what you might consider to be conflicting needs or conflicting desires?
Right.
So there's a lot to be looked at yet.
Okay.
Very good. So we go here. Commissioner Hill?
Nothing to make comment on today. Thank you.
Commissioner Schuline?
Thanks again for the input on the model traffic calming initiative, or whatever we'll call it. I did get requests from some citizens in Heritage Hills that would like selective traffic enforcement if they could on, I think, Harvey, Walker, and Hudson. They mentioned. I'm sorry, the officer's not here today, but I don't know if we can pass that along, or if there's somebody else we can talk to.
I was about to say, can you fill me in on more details on that at the follow-on meeting? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Miller? Commissioner George? Commissioner Yonkel?
I would just say I feel like the initiative they've been working on is more than a speed bump. So there are so many moving pieces, variables, different solutions, effectiveness, appropriateness. I just feel like we don't want to homogenize it down to something simple that we can just check a box and move on down the road. I just want to give it its time to evolve as it should, because you've started some really nice work, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Counselor? No. Staff?
The only thing I want to bring your attention to is our list of the yield signs that were installed through the administrative process last month, actually last 2 months. So you can see that we've had quite a few requests, and we've addressed pretty much everything that's come in.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other business? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Okay, we are out of here. Thank you all.